If you've made freezer meals in the past and they tasted gross or had a texture you didn't like, we're gonna explain today why that happened and how you can keep it happening in the future. We're gonna share with you our foolproof recipes and all of our tips and tricks so that you never have that tragedy again. Basically, we are here to redeem the precious reputation of freezer meals.
That's right, we do love freezer meals. And freezer meals love us because we know how to do them. So let's show you how.
One of the most common reasons that freezer meals taste gross is that you are freezing ingredients that don't freeze and thaw well. One of the biggest culprits is raw potatoes. I see all the time recipes on the internet that include raw potatoes for a freezer meal, like it's a stew recipe or something like that, and they're just getting you to throw the raw potatoes in the bag, and I cringe because you're gonna end up with, ugh.
They go mealy. For one thing, texturally they change, they can go watery, they can sometimes turn black. I think if they're in a sauce, it probably prevents it from turning black, but they don't do what they're supposed to do. They don't freeze nicely. Cooked potatoes, no problem. No problem. Parboiled even, just like parboiled meaning like you've partially cooked them, even better than raw.
So you can cook with frozen potatoes, like your hash browns, frozen tater tots, that kind of thing. You can put those in a freezer meal, no problem. And like Christy was saying, we've got like our double stuffed baked potatoes that we freeze that are so amazing, or our garlic mashed potato recipe. There are ways that you can freeze cooked potatoes. But when it comes to raw potatoes, we're gonna teach you a way that you can still incorporate them, but you salvage the freezer meal.
This pork tenderloin sheet pan dinner is one of our absolute prettiest meals, as well as being delicious. And it looks great on your plate, it looks great on the sheet pan, it is even pretty in the bag, let me tell you. So to make this, we're going to start with our pork tenderloin, and we're gonna throw it in a bag. If it is too big to fit in your bag, you can totally cut it in half and make it fit better. You're going to add in carrots, which freeze really well, big chunks of onion, we're gonna throw in some salt and pepper, some olive oil, balsamic vinegar, some melted honey, and some finely chopped rosemary. We're gonna mix that all around in that bag. And then we're going to take the excess air out, because when it comes to freezer cooking, air is the enemy and it will make your freezer burn, it'll bring in the frost. We want your freezer meals to last as long as you need them to last, which is typically about 3 to 6 months. We're going to get that excess air out of the bag, seal it up, and then throw it in our freezer and freeze it. On the day of cooking, this is where our potatoes come in. You're going to thaw your meal, and then you're gonna spread it out on your sheet pan as if you're gonna throw it in, and then you can add in your baby potatoes. 2 to 3 cups of baby potatoes with just chopped in half. You can mix them around a little bit so that they get some of that seasoning and the marinade on them as well. Then you're gonna throw it in your oven. So you're still going to get the benefit of having the potatoes without having to have them in the freezer meal and then having them ruined because they've been frozen. You want to bake this in your oven at 350 for 40 to 50 minutes, and then let it rest before you slice your pork.
It, like you said, is beautiful on the sheet pan. It's beautiful on the plate, and you still get the benefit of a meat and potatoes meal. And the only thing you had to do on the day that you go to make this is just slice some baby potatoes in half and throw them on your pan. So it really is simple and an easy way to fix that whole potato issue. Another issue that is common when it comes to freezer cooking is people complaining about their pasta being mushy. And this also has an easy fix, hooray!
Hooray!
And that is that when we do freezer meals where we cook the pasta before we freeze it, we undercook the pasta by about 2 minutes, under what the cooking instructions on the package tell you to, and then you can still go ahead and drain it, cool it, put it in your bag. And then on the day that you go to cook this, the whole thing cooks up in your oven, but because that pasta is undercooked, it's gonna allow it to cook a little bit more and be exactly the right texture and taste. So an example of this is our spinach sausage pasta bake. This one is packed with flavor, so good. To get this one started, you're gonna cook your pasta in some boiling water. You're gonna undercook that by about 2 minutes from what the package tells you. We usually use bow tie pasta for this. And then you're gonna drain it and you're gonna rinse it under cold water. The reason you're rinsing it under cold water is another thing that can contribute to your freezer meals not tasting as good as they could is if you put warm or hot ingredients into your freezer bag, because that can lead to condensation, which can cause ice crystals to form, and that will erode the taste of the meal. So if you're only adding cooled ingredients to your bag, that's another tip for how to salvage your meals and have them taste as amazing as they're meant to. Next, we're going to put that pasta into a freezer bag or into a bowl. This one, you've got so many things going on that sometimes it's easier to mix this one in a large bowl first and then transfer it into a freezer bag, but either way works. Then you're gonna put your browned ground Italian sausage, again that has been cooled, in, and some diced onion, minced garlic, some plum tomatoes that are drained, heavy cream, and some sliced spinach. You're gonna mix this all together either in your bag or your bowl. If it's in a bowl, you're gonna transfer it into the bag. Either way, you're gonna get as much air as you can out of there, seal it, and freeze it. Now, because your sausage is already cooked, this one only needs to be reheated on the day you serve it. So you thaw it, dump the whole thing into a greased casserole dish, and cover it with either a lid or foil. And you want to bake this one for half an hour to 40 minutes. You just want that sauce to be bubbly and nice and hot. This one is definitely a favorite at our house.
At our house too. And fun fact, another reason that you're going to want to rinse that pasta with cold water as you're draining it is because the cold water will stop it from cooking.
That's true. That's the point.
If you just let it sit in your bowl or let it sit in the hot water because you're busy and you're doing other things, it is going to continue to cook until you stop that cooking process by rinsing it in cold water.
Excellent point. We just have all the tips and tricks today.
Kitchen tips with Christy.
We have an excellent resource for you today, and it's free. It is our what freezes well, what doesn't, and how to freeze it cheat sheet. And you can find the link for that in the description down below, because our other complaint that we're going to talk about next is soggy vegetables. And it's true that when you are freezer cooking, if you don't know what to freeze, like, please don't ever freeze lettuce.
But did you know you can freeze cabbage?
Yes, and those are the kinds of things that you can find in that cheat sheet. So I just encourage you to go and give that a look through. It'll really help you understand what you can freeze, what you can't, and also how you can kind of optimize the things that you freeze. And so soggy vegetables can be caused by freezing the wrong vegetables or not blanching your vegetables first. Now, not all vegetables need to be blanched first, but again, just refer to that cheat sheet so you'll know which is which. When we are making freezer meals here at Freezer Meals 101, we are making them on such a large scale that we don't always have time, or we don't ever really have time to blanch the vegetables first. So a quick fix for that, for vegetables that should be blanched, is to go ahead and use already frozen vegetables, because that's something where they've already gone through a process to get them ready for freezing, and you will still get exactly the right texture when you're reheating. So we do have a recipe to share with you about that. That is a great way to enjoy, actually, it's another sheet pan where you get all the things all at once, but because of the frozen vegetables, you get the right textures.
That's right. One of the other benefits of using frozen vegetables that you might not have realized, when something is picked in a field, when they know it's going to be frozen, they can pick it at peak ripeness, because then it can immediately either go into a blast freezer or they can do their parboil at that moment and then get it into the freezer. You are getting more nutrients out of frozen vegetables than sometimes you get in the grocery store, because they have to pick them early before they're fully ripe, before they are fully nutrient, and then they finish that ripening process in the truck or on the way to the store or once they're at the store. Sometimes things are picked a lot earlier than you think that they should be, or than you think that they would be. So really, don't ever diss on the Fredgies, because the Fredgies are really, really nutrient. They are a quick and easy way to get a wonderful balanced diet into your family, and here is one of our favorite recipes to do that. Lemon chicken gnocchi sheet pan. We're going to start with some chicken breasts, raw and cubed. We're going to add into our freezer bag some gnocchi. Now, we like to use the refrigerated fresh gnocchi that you get at the grocery store rather than the shelf stable, because it doesn't need to be pre-boiled or pre-cooked before going into the freezer meal. You can use those, but you will have to cook it ahead of time and cool it, and probably only cook it part way, and then get it into your bag. So we just skip that step and go straight for the fresh stuff. We're going to add in frozen Brussels sprouts, frozen broccoli florets, purple onion in large chunks, some minced garlic from a jar, some olive oil, lemon juice, some oregano, mint, and salt. This is surprisingly fresh tasting, knowing that we have all of these frozen ingredients in there, and we're still going to take that air out of the bag, seal it up, put it in our freezer, and we are going to freeze it. On the day of cooking, you're going to get this out of your freezer, let it thaw, put it on a parchment paper lined cookie sheet. I don't know if you're picking up here that we don't really love to do dishes. So sometimes we use foil, sometimes we use parchment paper, but it just helps clean up a little bit easier. And I didn't even use a dish for like a bowl or anything. I just mixed it all in the bag.
As many dishes as we can avoid.
As many dishes as we can avoid. So we have it on our baking sheet. We're gonna bake it at 425 for 20-25 minutes. And then we are going to sprinkle it with some crumbled feta at the end. And you could broil that if you wanted, or you could just leave it and eat it that way.
Yeah, this one is such a nice fresh one, and it's got everything. It's got your potato gnocchi, so it's got your carb, it's got your protein with the chicken, it's got the veggies, it's got the nice brightness from the lemon juice. It just has all the things. So that's a great one to try if you've tried freezer meals before, not using our recipes, of course, because our recipes are awesome, and you found that you didn't like the texture of the veggies. This one should fix that for you.
Or like the potatoes, if this still isn't really floating your boat, you always have the option of adding those Brussels sprouts in fresh and that broccoli in fresh on the day of. You're not getting quite the convenience that you would have if you had used Fredgies in the first place. But if that is your jam, then that is your jam, and that's totally okay. It still takes a huge part of the load off by having this meal 90% made.
One of the other common things that we hear from people that have tried recipes that might not be our Freezer Meals 101 recipes, but is that they find texture issues just in general, whether it's veggies or otherwise. And so that again comes down a lot to knowing what freezes well and what doesn't, and using the right recipes. And so I wanted to choose a recipe to illustrate this to you, because it's again one of the ones where you can add something on the day of cooking that you probably shouldn't add into the freezing process if you want the textures to be spot on. And it was kind of fun because I actually served this. This is our Mediterranean chicken sheet pan, again with the sheet pans, but they're awesome. And we actually have 17 amazing sheet pan recipes in a video. I will pop the video up there and in the description below. But we do have an awful lot of sheet pans.
Yeah, we do.
Because they cut down on the dishes. And it's nice that they're super easy and convenient.
And it's nice that the flavors all mingle. Yes. And as like we have a Cajun sheet pan dinner, that the Cajun spice just gets in everywhere, and it is just so wonderful. And it's nice that it's one and done. Like our teenagers could make this.
They can and they have.
They do.
So the other night we were having company over. Actually, I should pop a link down below. We had our friend Josh Sahunta and his wife over. The most delightful people ever. But the reason I should pop a link down below is because Josh is a singer, he's an artist, he's a music producer, he's amazingly talented in addition to being a super nice guy.
He is just an incredibly nice human.
Right? But you should check him out below. He was actually recently nominated for a Juno, which is like Canada's version of the Grammys, so it's kind of a really big deal.
It's a big deal.
And like a huge honor. But again, just the nicest people on the planet. And so they were over for dinner and I was trying to figure out like what I should serve because his wife is expecting a baby. You know, you have to be careful with the spicy and like all the things. So I settled on the Mediterranean chicken sheet pan because who doesn't like it?
I haven't heard of anybody that said that's kind of meh.
No.
Everybody is like
bursts of flavor, but yet not spicy.
Right.
So it was just exactly what I was looking for. And that's why we're going to share it with you today because I just had it. And it's like fresh in my mind.
Awesome.
So into your large freezer bag, you're going to add some boneless, skinless chicken thighs, a purple onion that's chopped into large chunks, some sun-dried tomato and oregano salad dressing. Now, if you don't have that where you live, you can use other Greek type of salad dressings, or you can mix together some oil, vinegar, and some Greek seasonings, which we're gonna add right away here anyway, because then you're gonna throw in some Greek seasoning, some mint, some minced garlic, lemon juice, capers, and pitted Kalamata olives. So you have all those amazing Mediterranean flavors right here in your bag. You're going to again squish everything together to combine it, get as much air as you can out of the bag, seal it and freeze it. Now on the day you make this, you thaw it, and again, just like the other sheet pan meals, you are going to dump this onto your cookie sheet that is parchment paper lined if you want to make it easier for cleanup. And then you're going to add some baby tomatoes because those are better to add on the day of. Now I know we've said this already, but this again comes down to those textures. You could freeze the baby tomatoes right in this in the first place, but then when you go to heat this up, you're gonna have the wrong textures. It's gonna be a bit mushy.
You are. If you can freeze tomatoes, but they are going to be tomatoes that you're going to want to use in a tomato sauce that are going to be processed that way. To compare a frozen baby tomato with a fresh baby tomato on a sheet pan meal, there is no comparison. You want the fresh. So there's a time and a place when it comes to tomatoes. This is not it.
Exactly. And this is something where you've made 95% of your meal ahead and all you're doing is like dumping the bag contents on. You only had to think about getting tomatoes in the house. Everything else was already in your freezer. You wash up your tomatoes, throw them on there, put that in the oven, and then you're gonna pull it out when it's done and sprinkle some feta cheese on there again. Then you're gonna put it under the broiler and that kind of blisters the tomatoes a little bit and the feta crisps up a little bit. The chicken gets a little bit of some caramelization on it and that's where you get the perfect texture.
And that is why it is worthy to serve a freezer meal to company, and not just any company, like award-winning, Juno-nominated Josh Sahunta company. And you can serve this to company and they would never know that you took it out of your freezer that morning.
We had this TikTok video that went viral. Now, I know viral is a relative term, but between TikTok and Instagram, it has 9 million views, so I consider that kind of viral.
And it's still climbing, and yes, that was like big for us.
And so what comes along with a viral video is polarized comments. And the people there didn't know us because I'm just learning how to use TikTok. I still have no idea how to use TikTok or Instagram, so I'm just learning. So I'm not there a lot. And they just haven't had the opportunity to get to know us like YouTube has. And so they don't know our freezer meals either. So they're going based on their own experience or just on like, I've never had a freezer meal, but I never would kind of attitudes. And so it's been interesting. And so from those polarized comments, we learned that not everyone has had positive experiences with freezer cooking. And one of the comments that we got, in addition to, you know, texture and mushy and the other things that we've talked about today, is they all taste the same. And that one,
it kind of made us laugh because when we do this we do it for a living, but we've been doing this every 3 months for like over 12 years together. And both of us before that, before we knew each other. 4 years. There is a lot of variety in freezer meals. There is not a chance that they taste all the same, or we wouldn't do it.
No, because I'm a bit of a foodie. I don't want to say I'm a food snob.
You're a bit of a food snob. She's a foodie. And she has that palate. So you know that these taste good, because if she thinks they taste good, they probably really do taste good.
I would never continue to make freezer meals if they all tasted the same. Like, no. It's just not even possible. So we were trying to pick like what recipe could show, and I was really debating because we have this Thai noodle salad one that
we don't make it enough, to be honest. It is really good.
And we have so many really good ones. And even that Cajun chicken sheet pan you were talking about before, that there are so darn many meals that you would not believe are freezer meals that we've played around with and experimented and got them to where they are club worthy, they are you worthy, and
serving company worthy.
Exactly. And so the one I decided to share is actually our Thai chicken lettuce wraps, because you don't think of lettuce wraps as being a freezer meal.
And we already said you can't freeze lettuce.
Right. So that part of it you're not going to freeze, but you're going to freeze the part that's hard to make, the part that you don't want to think about. You want to have it already done and in your freezer and ready for you, so that all you have to do is put it on your lettuce leaves. And then this is one I have served for company
many times
because it is that good. It's restaurant quality, definitely. It's kind of restaurant inspired because a lot of restaurants have the lettuce wraps. But I thought, you've probably heard, soups, stews, casseroles are freezer meals, and we do have recipes for soups, stews, and casseroles. We also have recipes, as you've seen, for sheet pan and for slow cooker and those kind of things, but this is one that you probably don't expect to be a freezer meal.
The Thai chili chicken lettuce wraps are dynamite. This is restaurant inspired, and you're gonna see why. In our freezer bag, we are going to add our ground chicken that has been cooked and cooled, minced garlic, diced onion, some roasted cashews, some matchstick carrots, some red pepper that's been diced, some fish sauce, soy sauce, and that's it. We are going to seal that bag up, and we're going to mix it around and let those flavors meld in there. And in another bag, we're going to make the sauce. This sauce is going to have Thai sweet chili sauce, some lime juice, and some sesame seeds. That is it. Get the air out of this bag, seal it up. You're going to staple these two together above the seal because you don't want to poke holes in the important part, especially when you go to thaw these. You're going to put them in your freezer. Now, on the day of cooking, you are going to need some other ingredients like the lettuce, but that is all listed right there on your label. Labels are important to us, so it's got the recipe title on it, it's got cooking instructions on it, and how you make it and how you can serve it, as well as the date. That is an important thing to put on your freezer meals. So when you go to serve this, you're going to allow it to thaw, and because you looked at your label, you're going to have some steam-fried noodles that are ready to go, and some lettuce leaves. Now you can use romaine, you can use butter lettuce, you could use whatever you like is your favorite lettuce, but the romaine is nice because it makes it like a little boat.
Yes.
The large bag, you're going to heat it in a skillet, and it is already cooked, so you're really just like 5 minutes because you just want this piping hot. You're going to put that in your lettuce leaf. You're going to put your steam fried noodles on top because they're crunchy and exciting in your mouth. And then you're going to drizzle some of that sauce on top. And then you eat it. Now, you can imagine yourself, you know, at a restaurant with your girlfriends and you're having an appy night and one of you orders the chili chicken lettuce wraps and everybody's like, oh good, because then they're nice to share. It makes a wonderful appetizer. This is something you can absolutely serve to company. This is like, it really is just like the anti-freezer meal.
Yes, and if you are one of those people that are like, but don't they all taste the same? Then I hope that in this video, we've kind of given you a little bit of an overview of how, no, they don't.
No, they don't.
Another common complaint is mushy slow cooker meals. Mm-hmm. And there can be lots of causes of this. One of them being, of course, like we talked about before, not knowing what freezes well and what doesn't, and what you should add the day of cooking fresh and what you should add into your freezer, that kind of thing. But one of the things is, for me, there's certain things that cook up really, really nicely in a slow cooker and that belong in a slow cooker. Whereas there's other meals that just do better in the oven, on the skillet, on the barbecue. Like, you have to choose the right appliance for the meal. It's kind of like, you know, when you're a kid and you play that matching game?
Mm-hmm. Like concentration?
Well, it's like the guessing where you have to match up the two things that go together. And sometimes they're identical things, but some versions of that game, it'll be like you match up the two fruits.
Two fruits, but one's a strawberry and one's an orange. You just know it's not a vegetable and you know that it's not an egg.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so you're matching up things that go together.
Right.
Or there's versions of it where it's like up and down.
Sure.
And
opposites.
so it's opposites, right? Well, I feel like when you're cooking...
Can you tell that Charlotte was a homeschool mom? We played memory at our house with a deck of cards.
Right.
And if you had a 7 and you picked up a 7, you had 7s. And it didn't matter if they were red or black. It didn't matter. And sometimes we would just pull certain ones out of the deck. Sometimes if we were feeling very brainy, we would play the whole deck. Depends on who you play with, because if you played with my dad, he liked to have them all in order. But if you played with my mom, she liked to scramble them, so it was harder. Yeah,
I see.
A deck of cards.
Well, we had a lot of those kind of games. We had, like an emotion matching.
Oh, that's good.
Game, and
you're funny. That is awesome.
Yes. So I feel like cooking, I know this is a stretch, but like stick with me, okay? Because with cooking, it's sort of like you have to match the recipe with the appliance. Because some things are just not meant for a slow cooker. So the problem could be that you're using a recipe that, yes, it can be cooked in the slow cooker, but maybe shouldn't be. And I'm going to call myself out here.
I know what you're going to say.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, I know exactly what you're going to say. You tell it, though. I like this story.
So, Christy is the reason that we make Jamaican jerk chicken.
Yes, I'd been making it for a long time. I had a nice recipe for it that I had already modified from the recipe that I originally had. And I said, can we try make this? She likes spicy things. We like spicy things. It was good. And it's actually really, really good.
And we have been making it for years and years and years and years now. But, you know, I'm the one that had the freezer meal website and stuff. And so
it's in a cookbook.
It is in one of my freezer meal cookbooks. And so I wrote out the instructions, and I like to add different cooking instructions. Like, you can do it in the oven,
of
or
course.
you can do it on the barbecue, or you can do it in the slow cooker. And so I did add a slow cooker thing based on, you can cook chicken in the slow cooker.
You certainly can.
And
should you cook chicken in the slow cooker is the question she should have been asking herself. It depends. Is the answer.
It depends is the answer, because Jamaican jerk chicken should never be cooked in the slow cooker. It is a barbecue recipe. And yes, you can do it in the skillet, and it's actually beautiful in the skillet.
I've broiled it. It's really good that way too.
Never in the
slow cooker. So I looked at this at one time. I was going through all of our PDFs and the cookbook, and I came across it. I'd never even noticed that it was a slow cooker recipe. And I said, Charla, I don't know how to tell you this, but when you're in Jamaica and you are on the beach and there is somebody behind you that is has the half barrel, and it's got the wood in it, and it's got the grill, and they're making the quarter chickens of the Jamaica jerk chicken, and you can smell it down the beach, and you know that you're gonna go talk to this guy and pay your however many Jamaican dollars and buy this chicken. That is what Jamaican jerk chicken should make you feel like. And it's not gonna happen if it's in a slow cooker.
And she's so right, so right. And so you might notice I took the slow cooker.
We took that out. And
off.
She's like, yes, I stand corrected. You can take that part off.
And Jamaican jerk chicken, it should have a bit of a sear on it. It should have that. And so
you should feel like you had it on a beach in Jamaica.
Yes. It's never going to get that in your crock pot. So what is awesome in a crock pot or an Instant Pot that isn't so good if cooked elsewhere is things like your shredded meats, right? We've got an amazing barbecue shredded chicken recipe, one of my favorites of all time, and that is should be in the slow cooker recipe.
Absolutely.
We've got zippy shredded chicken tacos, again, slow cooker, shredded beef nachos, slow cooker or Instant Pot. We've got the hot honey chicken sandwiches.
Barbecue chicken drumsticks, which you would not think goes in the slow cooker, but in this specific recipe, it totally does. And you should look that one up on our website.
Tender. And then you broil them in the oven. I'm going to give you the spoiler alert because this is I don't want you to be like, but, again, we're all about it having the right texture. And so we've got the tricks for that. But yes, there are certain recipes that actually are better,
obviously,
in the slow cooker. So I'm going to share one with you now. This Dr. Pepper pulled pork is, again, one of our favorites. You really can't go wrong with this. All you're going to do is, in a large freezer bag, you're going to add a pork shoulder or butt, some coarsely chopped onion, some chipotle peppers in adobo sauce, some Dr. Pepper to help tenderize that meat, a little bit of brown sugar, some salt and pepper. You're gonna squish that all together in your bag. Now, you are gonna wanna wait just a minute or two before you seal it. Otherwise, you'll have a really hard time getting the air out because of the bubbles from the Dr. Pepper. Then you're gonna get your air out, seal it, and freeze it. When you go to make this, you're gonna put your thawed pork and all that liquid into your slow cooker, and you're just gonna cook this. You can do it on low for kind of all day or on high for 4 to 5 hours. At the end, you're gonna shred it and you're gonna serve it on buns. We like to serve ours with a really simple garlic mayo and some coleslaw. You can even put some plain chips on there if you wanna add some crunch. Now, when you're shredding this, if you like things spicy, you can shred those chipotle peppers up right as you're shredding your meat, and you can serve this all together, which is what our family does. Or if you are a little lower on your spice tolerance, then you can toss those peppers out before you do the shredding, and it's still gonna have some of that flavor, and it's still going to be amazing.
And that is just another way to showcase that you can make freezer meals for you, how you need to make them for your family for them to enjoy it. They're very customizable when you know what you're doing.
Absolutely. And if you want to be able to create meals that you want and be able to customize them, then you should check out the link in the description below of our Freezer Meals 101 Club, because that will allow you to create custom meal plans using our tried and true freezer meal recipes. It'll allow you to print off your shopping list, your prep list, and printable labels. And the printable labels will help you not only to cook it properly and to know what you'll need for the day of cooking, but also to know the date that you put it in your freezer, so that, because 3 to 6 months is kind of the general rule of thumb when it comes to freezer meals. There's 1 or 2 things I can think of that really only last like 2 to 3 months, but for the most part, 3 to 6 months is a good rule of thumb. And so again, in order to optimize things and have things taste as good as they can, you want to stick within that window. So having the date on there is going to help you do that. And you can customize the recipes, but you can also customize the serving size. There's this little slider that you just move over or move down, so you can double or triple or quadruple the meals if you want to make a lot at one time, or if you have a large family. If there's only 1 or 2 of you, you can actually shrink those meals right down, and it'll adjust your shopping list and prep list accordingly. So it's kind of handy.
I would say it's kind of handy as well.
Now, another complaint that we have had from people, and this is sort of related, and again, not to our freezer meals, but to when they've tried freezer cooking in the past before they found our channel, is that it's a little bit related to texture, but it's that they have tried to make meals where they used ground meats, like ground beef, ground chicken, or ground sausage, raw into the meal. No.
There are freezer meal recipes like that online. I'm not entirely sure why. I'll tell you why I like to cook mine ahead of time, and Charlotte is the same. First of all, you're able to drain the extra fat, so they're just healthier. Also, think about when you are mixing things together in your bag, like, for example, we have a chili casserole that it's got chili spice in it, and it's got a few vegetables, and it has the ground beef. To mix that in with our meal, and then thinking about what that looks like in the freezer bag, it would look like meatloaf. And then you go to cook it, it would cook like that. It wouldn't.
Yeah.
It would cook like a burger almost, without breaking it up all the time. So we cook ours ahead of time so that it sprinkles nicely. We can measure it easier. It's
and texturally browned.
It can be browned properly. We season it ahead of time sometimes. There's just a million reasons to not use raw ground meat.
Now, there are exceptions, because when we're making homemade meatballs, for example, or meatloaf,
of course,
we use raw meat and we freeze it before baking it,
yep,
like before cooking. And that's totally fine. And then you're going to get that fresh thing. Now, chicken, most of our recipes, I would say, use raw chicken, but we have the occasional one that uses cooked, because then it's easier if you live on your own to make them and portion them out into individual portions, or if we're doing something like a pasta sauce that has chicken in it, something like that. So we do have a few recipes with chicken, but all other than the meatloaf and meatball recipes with ground meats, we cook the meat ahead.
So this taco meat is super, super delicious, because it is not just like the instructions on the back of the old El Paso package that you would have at the grocery store. This has a little bit more thought and a little bit more flavor put into it. We're going to start out with our ground beef that has been browned and cooled. We're going to add in some finely chopped onion, some taco seasoning. Now, I don't know if you know, but 4 tablespoons of taco seasoning is equivalent to 1 packet that you would buy at the grocery store. So you can still use your packet, that is totally fine. We buy it in bulk because honestly we go through so much of it that we now know the equivalent is 4 tablespoons. We're going to add in some tomato sauce, a bit of chili sauce, and then some shredded cheese. And we're gonna shred it and put it right into the freezer meal. And that seems like a little bit weird, but because our ground beef is already cooked, when you go to cook this, the cheese just melts as it gets hot, and then it's pretty much done. Now you're still gonna do all the things. You're gonna get the excess air out of the bag. You're gonna freeze it. You're going to thaw it before you go to use it. Sometimes you put it in your slow cooker because on a low heat or even on keep warm, it is enough to, really just make it nice and hot for when it's time to make your tacos.
Yeah, your meat's already cooked, so you're just kind of reheating.
Yeah.
And this is one, I mean, taco meat, you know, is very, very versatile. And so having it in your freezer, now you can mix it in a large bowl if you prefer, and then portion it out into smaller bags. And then you can have it, again, if there's just one or two of you, but also like sometimes it's nice to just sprinkle on nachos or something like that.
Huevos rancheros, you could have it in your eggs, you could have it...
Hash browns.
Yeah, there's a million ways to use taco meat.
In pasta, like you just put some of that taco meat in there and a bit of tomato sauce. You've got your pasta, bake it up, and then sprinkle some cheese, some green onions and tomatoes on top. There's so many things you can do with taco meat in addition to like tacos or walking tacos or taco salad. Like it goes on.
It is limitless. We love the humble taco meat.
And having it always in your freezer just gives you those possibilities.
I will tell you that tacos are probably my number one thing that I serve company, because especially if you have a lot of people coming, you don't always know their food issues. You know, in 2024, everybody has a food issue now, and that's okay.
And we're no exception.
We are no exception. But when you have taco meat, it's an easy one because then people can decide what they would like to put on their tacos. And I just like to have it for company. And everybody seems to love them. I really don't know anybody that doesn't love a taco.
And we have so many varieties because our freezers are usually very stacked with meals. We've got, you know, whether it's one of our chicken tacos that we have a lot of varieties of, or even our fish tacos or our shrimp tacos, or, you know, there's so many things that often I do too. Pull out like 2 varieties, or even 3 if we're having a lot of people, and then
you make a taco bar. Oh yeah.
And everybody can put their own fixings. And yes, if they're dairy free, obviously they're not going to have the taco meat that has the cheese in it. But they might have your chicken taco meat, and then they don't sprinkle the cheese on top. If they're gluten-free, they can use the corn tortillas versus the flour tortillas, because you can have both out. If you're my kids, you're gonna make it in a corn tortilla and wrap that in a flour tortilla.
Totally.
You want the crunch, and yeah. So many options for you.
And you might say, you know, I'm fine with just making the ground beef and the with the packet. Like, it's so easy. Why are you doing all this work? I will tell you why. Partly because there are a few more steps in this particular recipe, but really it is about the mental load. When you cook 3 meals a day, or if you are the default parent and you cook every meal, every night, and we call it the 4 o'clock dinner dread, where it is 4 o'clock and you're like, I forgot to pull something out for supper, or I have no idea what we're gonna make for supper. This takes that off of your plate, pardon the pun. The idea that I have these meals in my freezer and that I have made them myself, they are going to suit my family. I know that they're going to taste good. I know that the texture is going to be good because we've gone through this process. We are making good meals here. And I feel very good about feeding these to my family. And I'm not going through drive-thru. I'm not ordering pizza because we just didn't have time or we just didn't think of anything. Boy, does that feel good. This is one area of our life that we actually have together.
Now, the other areas of my life, I will tell you.
Totally messy.
Absolutely. A complete and utter chaotic mess.
But what's for dinner is not one of the problems.
That is the truth. If you have tried freezer meals in the past and you have been disappointed, I am so sorry that you put all that work in and didn't get the results that you deserved. I hope that you have seen today that there might have been some reasons why that happened and that those are things that can be avoided. We hope that maybe we've helped redeem the reputation of freezer meals.
We're passionate about freezer meals, and like we said, they're very important to us because we use them every day and at least weekly. They go camping with us, they go skiing with us.
They kind of go everywhere.
They are gifts for people.
Yes.
Oh, I love that we have this ability to share that with people, and we are passionate about it, and we do want to show you how to do it and how to do it right.
So maybe pick one of the recipes that we've shown you here today if it appealed to you, and just give it a try. Don't double it on that first attempt, because we don't want you to end up with two that you don't like, just in case. But give one a try, see how it goes for you. Maybe double it and cook one fresh tonight and put the other in your freezer to test.
And that way, if you don't like it, you can give it to a friend.
But we do hope that you check us out at freezermeals101.com, where you can find recipes that really work for make-ahead meals and that can save you so much time, money, and most of all, mental load. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're gonna pop a video right there if you wanna see just how much variety is possible in freezer meals. We're gonna put a link to our mega session. We'll put our biggest mega session there, which was 156 meals in 2 days.
In 2 days.
And so you're gonna find a lot of variety, and it might open your eyes to the possibilities when it comes to freezer cooking.
You know, have a look at that video and see how we really do it. It really is real food. They really are delicious, and we are really glad we could show this to you.
Thanks again, and happy cooking.